I never imagined my son's wedding weekend would end with me being shoved out like a stranger, like an intruder at a celebration I paid for. "You're not welcome here," Vanessa snapped, her manicured finger stabbing the air, her tone sharp enough to slice the music mid-note. The laughter died instantly. Heads turned. All eyes landed on me. I stood frozen, clutching the purse that held the $50,000 check I wrote to cover their entire wedding. Julian, my only son, stared at the floor. He didn't say a word. Not a single one. Not to her, not to me. Just silence. And in that silence, something inside me broke. I turned and walked past the guests who couldn't meet my eyes, past the flowers I paid for, through the doors of the venue I'd booked, and into the cold night air. I sat in my car in the dark parking lot, Vanessa's voice replaying in my head like poison. "You're not welcome here." But it wasn't even her that crushed me. It was Julian. My son. The boy I raised after his father walked away. The boy I supported through every heartbreak and helped launch into adulthood. The one who couldn't even raise his head to acknowledge me? My phone buzzed in the cup holder, lighting up with messages. Not one asked if I was okay. Not one asked what had been said to me. Every single one was a warning. Don't make a scene. It's Vanessa's big day. Please don't ruin this for them. A sob pressed into my throat, but I didn't let it out. I had cried enough for people who saw me as a wallet. That part of me was done. Instead, I let the cold rage bloom inside me. I opened the email thread from the wedding planner, scrolled to her contact, and hit call. "Hi, Linda," she chirped. "I was just—" "Cancel everything," I said flatly. "Excuse me?" "The venue, the vendors, the band, the food. All of it. Cancel it." There was a long pause. "Linda, the contracts are all in your name, but are you sure?" "If I'm not welcome at the wedding, neither is my money." I hung up. By the time I pulled into my driveway, my hands weren't shaking anymore. The sadness had settled into something sharper. Determination. At my kitchen table, I opened the wedding binder I had built with care. Color-coded tabs for the venue, florist, band, catering, timeline, seating chart. All organized by me, paid for by me. They had brought nothing but Pinterest boards and attitudes. Every contract had my name on it. I made the calls one by one. First the venue, then the florist, then the photographer, then the band. Each time I repeated the same thing. "This is Linda Moore, contract holder. Cancel everything." Each time the vendor paused. Some tried to talk me out of it, some mentioned cancellation fees. I didn't care. I had paid for their dream and they treated me like an outsider. So, the dream was over. Every call I made straightened my spine a little more. They hadn't just taken my support for granted, they had expected it, demanded it, weaponized it against me. The wedding wasn't theirs. It was mine. And if I wasn't allowed in the picture, then the whole thing could burn. The last email I opened was from the band confirming cancellation. I smiled for the first time in days. They would wake up tomorrow to a fairy tale that no longer existed. The house was quiet until a knock hit the door like thunder. I peeked through the blinds. Julian. His tie was crooked, his face flushed. He knocked again. "Mom, open up. We need to talk." I didn't move. A harder knock. "Mom, I know you're in there." Silence. Then more urgent. "You can't do this. It's our wedding." My lips curled into a bitter smile. "No, Julian, it wasn't yours. It never was." He left eventually. His car pulled out of the driveway and disappeared into the night. My phone lit up again. Julian, 6:13 p.m. "Why aren't you answering?" Julian, 6:14 p.m. "What the hell is going on?" Julian, 6:15 p.m. "You're ruining our lives." That last one made me laugh. A hollow sound that didn't even feel like my own voice. I answered without thinking. "Mom, what the hell are you doing?" His voice was panicked, harsh. "You can't just cancel the wedding. Everyone's expecting—" "Stop," I said, my voice like ice. You stood there yesterday and let her humiliate me in front of everyone. I didn't want to make a scene. Oh, but it was fine for Vanessa to make one. She didn't mean it like that. She meant every word, and you let her. There was a pause. You're overreacting. I paid for everything, Julian. The venue, the food, the music, the flowers. And you let me throw me out like trash. It's our wedding. No, I said. It was my gift. And now it's gone. Please, he pleaded. You can't do this. The Nessa's crying. The vendors. She should have thought about that before she opened her mouth. A message popped up on my screen. Vanessa, 6:18 p.m. You bitter old woman. You've always hated me. 6:19 p.m. You're ruining Julian's life out of spite. 6:20 p.m. Stay away from us. You're toxic. Did you see what she just sent me? She's just upset, he said. No, Julian. She's showing who she is. Mom! Goodbye, Julian. I hung up. The phone buzzed again, but I didn't answer. I turned it over and left it screened down on the table. Tomorrow, they'd wake up to no venue, no flowers, no music. And for once, I wouldn't be the one rushing in to fix everything. They'd destroyed my place in their lives the second they threw me out of that room. And now, they'd see what that actually cost them. By the time the sun rose the next morning, my phone was buzzing nonstop. I didn't answer. I sat at the kitchen table, sipping coffee that had long gone cold, staring at the now-closed wedding binder. The silence in the house was thick, but inside me, a quiet clarity had taken root. I wasn't going to be guilted. I wasn't going to play the role they'd written for me. Silent, generous, disposable. At 8:47 a.m., the pounding on the front door began. Mom, open the door. We need to talk. Julian's voice cut through the stillness, insistent and angry. I didn't move. He pounded again, louder. Don't make me stand out here all day. I took a breath and walked to the door, cracking it open just enough to see him clearly. His face was flushed, his hair a mess, his suit jacket wrinkled. He pushed inside without waiting for permission. What the hell, Mom? He shouted before he even reached the living room. You destroyed everything. Do you even care what you've done to me, to Vanessa? I folded my arms, my voice low. Lower your voice. You're in my house. He ran his hands through his hair, pacing wildly. The vendors are gone. The venue's been booked by another couple. No one is answering our calls. Do you get it? The wedding is ruined. Good, I said. It should be. He froze. What? I'm done funding my own humiliation. His eyes narrowed. Vanessa was upset. She didn't mean what she said. She meant every word, I snapped. She told me to leave my own event in front of 50 people. And you just stood there. I didn't want to make it worse, he muttered. You stood there like a stranger, Julian. You didn't defend me. You didn't even look at me. His face twisted into something colder. You've always been like this, controlling, overbearing. This is why Dad left. That line hit like a blow to the chest. I stood still for a moment. The air punched out of my lungs. Then, instead of crumbling, I felt something inside me harden. Selfish? I repeated. Do you have any idea what I gave up to raise you? How many hours I worked? How many vacations I skipped? How many dreams I buried so you could chase yours? His mouth opened as if to argue, but no sound came. You chose her over me. So let her pay for the wedding she wants. I walked to the front door and opened it wide. You should go. He hesitated, but then stormed past me and slammed the door behind him hard enough to make the windows shake. I stood still for a long moment, letting the silence wrap around me. For the first time in years, I saw Julian not as the child I had raised, but as the man he had become, one I barely recognized. By noon, the phone calls started. First, it was my sister-in-law, Carol. Linda, she said cautiously, Julian told me what's going on. He's devastated. Please, you've got to fix this. I stared at the phone. Fix this? How? Just reinstate the payments. They're young, they made a mistake, but this is their wedding. You don't want to ruin it for them. My voice stayed calm. I didn't ruin anything. They did that when they treated me like an outsider. Carol sighed. You've always been strong-willed. Maybe Vanessa felt threatened by that. I paid for her entire wedding. If that's threatening, then maybe she should have thanked me instead of humiliating me. Don't let pride get in the way of family. I hung up without replying. 5 minutes later, another call came. I felt a knot twist in my stomach when I saw the name. Mark, my ex-husband, Julian's father. Linda, he said, his tone tight. Julian called me. He's a mess. I don't know what happened, but canceling the wedding? That's too much. Too much! My voice rose before I could stop it. Where were you when Vanessa threw me out at the rehearsal? Where were you when our son stood there in silence? Don't make this about the past, he sharply said. This isn't the time. No, of course not, I said bitterly. It's never the time to talk about how I carried everything while you disappeared. Just let them have their day. Be the bigger person. That's code for shut up and keep paying. Linda, don't be dramatic. I hung up. I stood in my living room staring at my reflection in the window, pale, drained, and suddenly more certain than I'd ever been. I wasn't family to them. I was a bank account with a heartbeat, but that was over. I sank onto the couch, my mug of coffee still cold in my hand, time slipping past in silence. I wasn't crying, I wasn't shaking. I was just still, grieving not just for the wedding, but for the truth that had finally revealed itself. My love had always come second to what I could give. Around 4 o'clock, a text came from a cousin. Linda, don't destroy the family over a misunderstanding. I turned off the screen. Then an image flashed in my mind, my own wedding day. I was 23, young, nervous, full of hope. My ex-mother-in-law had pulled me aside that morning and whispered, "Quiet women make the best wives, don't make waves." And I had nodded, smiled, swallowed every wave that ever rose in me for decades. But now, decades later, I saw clearly, quiet isn't the same as weak. And I was done being quiet. I stood up, poured out the cold coffee, wiped my face, and picked up my keys. The next morning, I sat across from Margaret Chen, my longtime attorney, in her sunlit office. "You look tired," she said gently. "What's going on?" I told her everything. The rehearsal, the humiliation, the silence from Julian, the cancellations, every detail. Margaret listened without interrupting. When I was done, she sat back and said, "Let me be very clear. You've done absolutely nothing wrong. The contracts are in your name. The payments were yours. If they want this wedding, they'll have to pay for it themselves." A small flicker of relief passed through me. What if they try to sue me? Margaret smiled. On what grounds? If they try, forward everything to me. I'll handle it. A knock on the door interrupted us. Margaret's assistant peeked in. "Sorry to interrupt. A man named Julian Moore is on the phone. He says it's urgent." I froze. Margaret raised her eyebrow. "Do you want to take it?" "No, not now." "Good," she replied. "Let him sweat. You've carried him long enough." And for the first time in weeks, I felt something steady me. Not anger, not sadness, but power. Quiet, still, but unshakable. Margaret slid a packet of papers across the desk. "I'll send formal notices to every vendor confirming cancellation and your sole legal authority. If Julian or Vanessa show up here, they'll be speaking to me, not you." As I signed the forms, my hand no longer shook. They had taken enough. They would take nothing else. When I got home from Margaret's office, my phone was already flashing with alerts. Missed calls, unread text, social media notifications, more than I could count. At first, I ignored them. But then the flood became a wave. Dozens of pings came from people I hadn't spoken to in years. I opened Facebook, unsure of what I'd find, and there she was, Vanessa, front and center in a live video. Her mascara ran down her cheeks as she sobbed into the camera, holding a tissue with trembling hands. The caption above the video read, I never thought my future mother-in-law would destroy our wedding out of jealousy and spite. My heart is broken. I hit play, my jaw tight. She canceled everything, Vanessa cried. The venue, the flowers, the food. She even threatened the vendors. After all we've done for her, she's trying to ruin the happiest day of our lives. I sat in stunned silence as she continued. We didn't want to go public with this, but she's left us no choice. Please keep us in your prayers as we try to recover from this nightmare. I scrolled down. The comments were already piling up. Wow, what kind of mother does this? Toxic much? Sending love, Vanessa. Stay strong. I could feel my pulse pounding in my neck. Every word was a lie. After all we've done for her, I had written every check, booked every service, sat through every planning meeting with a smile. I'd handed Vanessa the wedding of her dreams, and now she was painting me as the villain. I switched over the Instagram. Vanessa had posted a photo of herself and Julian, holding hands, their faces solemn. The caption read, "We won't let hate win. Family is about love and support, not control." Hundreds of likes. Dozens of comments. I felt the heat rise in my chest, not from sadness, but from pure fury. I opened my notes app and started a list. Every post, every comment, every lie. I took screenshots one by one, saved them into a folder marked Margaret. If Vanessa wanted war, she'd get one, but not the kind with shouting matches or Facebook rants. Mine would be quiet, legal, and permanent. Around noon, emails started trickling in from the vendors. The florist wrote, "Due to the cancellation, we will not be providing services for the Moore-Watson wedding." The photographer posted an Instagram story about having an unexpected opening that weekend. The band left a voicemail. "Just confirming we've canceled the event. Let us know if you need anything in the future." The dominoes were falling. By Friday morning, their wedding was in ruins. That's when Vanessa finally called. Her voice was tight, shaking, but covered in syrup. "Linda, can we talk?" I sat down and kept my voice even. "I'm listening." "I know things got heated at the rehearsal. We were all stressed. I shouldn't have said what I said." "You told me to leave, in front of everyone." "I was overwhelmed. You know how weddings are. But please, let's not throw it all away over one bad moment. Ryan and I can't afford to lose the deposits. The guests are expecting a wedding." I could practically hear her gritted smile. "Be reasonable. Do this for Julian. Don't ruin his big day." "I'm not ruining anything. I'm saving myself." Her voice changed instantly. Gone was the sweet tone. "You're a bitter, jealous old woman. You've always hated me." "Then Julian can marry someone else," I replied, and ended the call. Seconds later, the phone rang again. "Julian." I let it go to voicemail. I turned to my computer to catch up on email, and there it was. A subject line that made my blood run cold. Final payment confirmation. Maldives honeymoon package. I opened it thinking it was spam, but it wasn't. It was from a travel agency. "Thank you for booking your 14-night stay in an overwater villa with private butler service. Charges have been applied to your American Express ending in 3921. My card. The guests, Julian Moore and Vanessa Watson. Congratulations." The booking date was 3 weeks ago. While I was meeting with Vanessa for lunch to go over flower arrangements, she had booked a $26,000 honeymoon on my credit card. No mention, no request, just stolen. I scrolled further. Another email. "Thank you for your recent purchase. Bridal luggage set, Louis Vuitton." I opened my banking app. Charges stacked, one after another. $12,400, Emma's Boutique. $8,950, private chef deposit. $3,200, spa package. Not one of those charges came from me. My hand shook as I closed the laptop. This wasn't about a wedding. It was about extraction. They didn't want a mother-in-law. They wanted a blank check. And they hadn't even tried to hide it. They planned to drain me and toss me aside. I felt something snap deep inside me. There would be no more phone calls, no more second chances, no more pleading for scraps of respect. That night, while folding laundry, another voicemail came through. Julian, 10:47 p.m. I hesitated for a moment before pressing play. Mom, I don't know why I'm bothering. You've never been a real mother to me. Always too controlling, too cold. Emma was right. You've been jealous of her from the start. That's why you're doing this. You can't stand to see me happy. He paused, and then came the line that felt like a knife. No wonder Dad left you. Click. The message ended. I sat there in silence, not crying, not shaking, but just still. I pressed delete. With that message gone was something else. The last thread tying me to the boy I had once loved more than my own breath. Being alone was better than being used. I turned off the phone and the light. I was done. Tomorrow, it wouldn't be their wedding day. It would be the day they realized who they had really lost. The next morning, I sat once again in Margaret's office, a mug of untouched tea in my hands, as she read through the transcripts of Vanessa's videos, Julian's cruel voicemail, and the screen captures I'd collected. She didn't say much at first, her expression calm, but I saw the sharp glint in her eyes that meant she was already 10 steps ahead. This isn't just entitlement anymore, she said finally. It's harassment, and we're going to shut it down. She slid a document across the desk toward me. It was a cease and desist letter. Harassment, defamation, unauthorized use of funds. Everything was laid out in clear legal terms. We're sending this to Vanessa directly, Margaret said. Certified mail, email, and a copy to her parents. They need to understand this isn't going to be a public circus. I nodded, my grip tightening on the mug. And Julian? I asked. Margaret opened a folder labeled Joint Accounts. You opened this when he started college, yes? Yes, I said. I left it open in case he ever needed it. Well, she said, flipping to the most recent statement, he's still using it. He withdrew $7,500 last month, right after you paid the venue deposit. My stomach turned. That account had been a symbol, a message that I would always be there for him, that no matter how far he drifted, he could come home. But it didn't mean that anymore. Freeze it, I said. Margaret nodded without hesitation. It's done. She picked up the phone and instructed her paralegal with precision and confidence. I listened to her voice, cool and controlled, and realized I felt something unfamiliar. Steadiness. I wasn't scared. I wasn't angry. I was done. Julian and Vanessa had taken what they could, emotionally and financially. But the well was dry. As I left the office, the summer heat didn't bother me. The weight that had sat on my chest for days was lifting, slow but sure. I didn't even look at my phone until late afternoon. When I did, the screen was flooded. Vanessa's Instagram had gone silent, Julian's profile photo had disappeared. But a new post caught my eye. An old mutual friend, someone I hadn't spoken to in years, had commented under Vanessa's original video. Didn't Linda pay for everything, though? Something doesn't add up. I clicked it open. The replies came in fast. At first, Vanessa's friends tried to defend her. You don't know the full story. She's always been controlling. Trust Vanessa. She wouldn't lie. But then someone else chimed in. My cousin works at the venue. Linda Morris signed every contract, paid every bill. Julian and Vanessa didn't pay a dime. And the dam broke. Screenshots of Vanessa's luxury honeymoon package, booked under my credit card, started circulating in wedding gossip groups. People were ruthless. So they used her to pay for the wedding and the vacation, then kicked her out? Entitled trash. Hope they enjoyed their honeymoon in the backyard. Old classmates of Julian began to chime in. Not surprised. He always let women speak for him. Julian was always spineless. Looks like he married someone just like him. I didn't comment. I didn't reply. But I saved every single post, every screenshot, every comment. Not to fight back, just to remember that truth always floats to the top. By the next morning, even my sister-in-law Carol messaged again. Linda, I'm sorry. We didn't know the full story. Everyone's starting to talk. I just want you to know you're not alone. I didn't reply. I didn't need her apologies. What I needed, what I finally had, was clarity. For so many years, I let people take. I convinced myself it was kindness, patience, love. But really, it was fear. I was afraid that if I didn't keep giving, they'd walk away. And now they had. And I was still standing. That Saturday, what was meant to be their wedding day, I checked into a hotel by the coast, 2 states away. The spa upgraded my room to a suite with a view of the ocean. I had a balcony, soft robes, fruit platters, and a glass of chilled champagne in my hand by noon. I stretched out on the lounge chair and opened Instagram. A new notification. A guest who clearly hadn't heard about the cancellation posted, "Can't wait to celebrate with you two at 2 p.m. today." I smiled faintly and sipped my drink. At exactly 2 p.m., I closed my eyes and imagined the venue, not filled with roses and laughter, but empty, silent, booked for someone else. Vanessa and Julian had lost their day, but I hadn't. I had claimed mine. I snapped a photo of the view, the endless blue horizon, the edge of my champagne glass in the corner, and posted it with no context, just 4 words. Best decision I ever made. I didn't need to name them. They would see it. And they would know. That day, I felt no guilt, no regret, only peace. The kind that comes when you finally choose yourself after years of choosing everyone else. By Monday morning, the whispers had turned into a storm. Emma's sobbing video and Julian's quiet profile were no match for the truth once it started unraveling. It began with one bold comment under her original tearful post. "Didn't she pay for the whole wedding, though?" Then another. "My friend works at the florist. They said Linda was the only one who ever signed anything." It snowballed from there. Screenshots of the Maldives honeymoon package, booked with my credit card, leaked into wedding gossip forums. Someone posted a breakdown of the transaction history from the boutique, the caterer, the luxury spa, the Louis Vuitton store. My name was on all of it. Vanessa's carefully built victim narrative collapsed in real time. The comments shifted from sympathy to outrage. "So she paid for the whole thing and got kicked out? This is next level ungrateful. Imagine biting the hand feeding you the dream wedding." Some users shared old college anecdotes about Julian, calling him passive, spineless, always hiding behind louder people. Even a vendor weighed in anonymously, posting, "We warned the bride the mother-in-law held the contract. She said it was handled. She was wrong." The public didn't just see the cracks. They saw the rot. Emma tried to salvage it. She posted a new photo, just her hand and Julian's, with a caption that read, "Trying to stay strong. Please respect our privacy during this time." But it was too late. The narrative had slipped from her hands. The moment I knew it was over came when a wedding influencer reposted the story, calling it the biggest wedding disaster of the year. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I just took a long walk along the water that morning and let the waves remind me that peace wasn't something you were handed, it was something you claimed. The next message came from Vanessa's father, Gary. I had never liked him. Aloof, condescending, always acting like his daughter was the prize of the universe. I debated not answering, but curiosity got the better of me. "Linda," he said, his voice tight and forced, "I don't know what Emma said at the rehearsal, but surely you don't mean to destroy the entire wedding over one misunderstanding." I said nothing. I knew he hadn't called to understand. He'd called to negotiate. "Look, I'll be honest, things are tight right now, but I'm sure we can work something out if you'll just reinstate the payments." There it was. He hadn't spoken to me in months, barely acknowledged me at family events, and now here he was, begging for the funding he never offered himself. "No," I said plainly. "You'll have to figure it out yourselves." His voice sharpened. "Do you understand what this is going to do to Emma? To both families? The reputation alone?" I hung up mid-sentence. It wasn't my job to protect their reputations anymore. That afternoon, the final nail in their dream wedding arrived in the form of an email from the venue. "Dear Miss Moore, as per your cancellation request, the Moore-Watson wedding has been removed from our calendar. Please note the date has now been rebooked." That was it. Rebooked. Their dream venue, their fantasy celebration, had already been claimed by another couple. I pictured Vanessa seeing that message, Julian's expression when she told him, her parents sitting stunned at the kitchen table. And for the first time, I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt nothing. Just quiet. On Tuesday night, another email arrived. The subject line made my breath catch. "Let's put this behind us." I opened it. It was from Julian. "Mom, we've decided to forgive you for everything that's happened. We know emotions were high and people said things they didn't mean. Emma and I have talked it over and we're willing to let you come to the wedding if you promise to behave and not make things awkward. This is our day, and we hope you can be mature enough not to ruin it. Let's move forward as a family." I stared at the words in disbelief. Forgive me? I read the email 3 more times, unable to believe the sheer audacity. They were willing to let me come? After I funded everything? After I was publicly humiliated? After being called toxic? They believed I was the one who needed forgiveness? A short, sharp laugh escaped my throat before I could stop it. Not from joy, not from amusement, from disbelief. The entitlement was staggering. I hovered my fingers over the reply button, but I didn't type a word. They didn't deserve a response. They deserved silence. I closed the laptop and poured another glass of wine. That night, I slept for 9 uninterrupted hours, the first full night's sleep I'd had in over a month. The morning of what was supposed to be their wedding arrived bright and cloudless. I woke slowly, the scent of eucalyptus drifting from the spa oil diffuser. Sunlight spilled through the balcony doors. I stretched in the oversized hotel bed, rolled over, and grabbed my phone. No missed calls, no new messages, just the quiet peace I had chosen. At noon, while Vanessa should have been getting her makeup done and Julian adjusting his tie in the mirror, I sat wrapped in a white robe on the terrace, sipping champagne. The ocean glittered endlessly in front of me. Seagulls circled in the distance. I snapped a photo, the ocean, the edge of my glass, the perfect blue sky. I posted it to Instagram with no tags, no location, no explanation. Just 5 words. Best decision I ever made. I didn't care how many people saw it. I didn't care who passed it around. I posted it for one reason only, because it was the truth. Around 2 o'clock, the exact time they would have been walking down the aisle, I thought about the venue. It belonged to another couple now. Someone else's flowers. Someone else's laughter. I hoped the new bride had no idea she was standing on the ashes of a broken lie. And I hoped she never would. I closed my eyes and tilted my face to the sun. It was the first moment I could remember in years where I didn't feel used, ignored, or dismissed. I felt free. By Monday, their story had turned from gossip to cautionary tale. Wedding blogs picked it up, framing it as a lesson in what happens when you treat generosity like a guarantee. The comments were brutal. She built them a palace and they spit on her. Entitled millennials ruin their own wedding. Classic. Mother-in-law goals. She finally chose herself. The images of their $26,000 Maldives honeymoon, the boutique charges, the luxury vendors all charged to my account, it all made its way online. Somehow, even receipts I hadn't shared began circulating, posted by someone who worked at the venue, another from the florist. It wasn't just whispered anymore. It was public. Vanessa's Instagram was wiped clean. Julian's Facebook was deactivated. I knew it was a storm they couldn't outrun. And I wasn't the one holding the umbrella. A few days later, my sister-in-law, Carol, called again. "Linda," she said softly, "I had no idea. I believed Emma's version. I'm so sorry. We all did." I didn't answer. What was there to say? She continued, "You were never the villain. You were the only one holding everything together. We see that now." I let her finish, then I ended the call without comment. I didn't need apologies. I didn't need validation. I had my truth, and the world was finally seeing it. The text continued for another week. Old friends, distant cousins, even one of Julian's college roommates who messaged me to say, I always wondered how long it would take him to burn his bridges. But I didn't respond to any of them. I didn't need to. What I needed was quiet, reflection, realignment. I spent another weekend at a hotel, watching waves and reading books I hadn't touched in years. I stopped checking social media. I stopped reading the comments. It was done. They had tried to turn me into a villain, then a ghost, and when neither worked, a scapegoat. But I refused to be any of those things. They thought I would keep paying, no matter how cruel they became. They were wrong. They thought I would keep showing up, no matter how unwelcome they made me feel. They were wrong again. It turned out the moment I stopped giving them everything was the moment I finally gave myself peace. That Sunday evening, I took one last photo from the balcony, sunset sinking into the water, the sky bleeding with color. I didn't post it. I saved it for myself. The next morning, I packed my bags, checked out, and drove home in silence. The house was just as I'd left it. Quiet, clean, mine. I lit a candle on the kitchen counter, made tea, and sat down at the table. I opened the wedding binder one last time. Every tab, every contract, every page that held the evidence of who I was, the one who planned, funded, organized, carried it all. And then without ceremony, I closed it, walked to the fireplace, and dropped it in the fire. The paper caught quickly. The flames rose and curled the edges of the cover. I stood and watched until it was nothing but ash. No regrets, no anger, just closure. Let them rebuild their own dream. Let them fund their own future. Let them feel the weight of what they threw away, because I wasn't going to lift it for them ever again. By the time the second week passed, the gossip had sunk in deep. It wasn't just whispers behind hands at brunch tables or inside family group chats. It had become a full-blown reputation collapse. Vanessa and Julian weren't just the couple who canceled their wedding. They were now known as the ones who used the mother-in-law for luxury, then humiliated her in public. People were talking, and no one was defending them anymore. It started with a sarcastic meme circulating on wedding planning forums, a cartoon bride pointing at an older woman saying, "You're not welcome here," with the caption, "Plot twist, MIL paid for everything." Then a cryptic tweet from a local wedding DJ. Reminder, never disrespect the person whose name is on the contract, especially if it's your future husband's mom. I didn't like it. I didn't share it. I didn't need to. But I saw every single one. My silence had more power than I ever imagined. A few vendors even posted anonymously about what happened. One florist wrote, "Bride didn't listen when we said her MIL was our actual client. She found out the hard way." I had become a symbol, and not the bitter villain they tried to paint me as, but a kind of quiet hero for women who had been taken advantage of too many times and finally said no. Meanwhile, their guest list shrank. Friends stopped responding to their calls. People unfollowed their accounts. Even some of Julian's coworkers, according to a message from a friend of mine at his office, had started whispering about how he'd let his mother be treated like garbage in front of 50 people. They didn't just lose a wedding. They lost respect. And that's something money can't fix. One afternoon, I received a voicemail from Gary again, Vanessa's father. This time, he didn't sound angry. He sounded tired. "Linda, I know we've had our differences, but I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I should have stepped in when all this started. I see that now. I don't expect anything. I just thought you deserved an apology." I deleted the message without listening to the end. I didn't need late apologies from people who only realized the truth when the world forced them to. That evening, as I sat on my porch with a warm mug of tea, the sun dipping low behind the trees, another text lit up my screen. Julia, can we talk? We made mistakes. Please. I stared at it for a long moment. I didn't feel anger anymore. I didn't even feel hurt. I felt distance. The kind of distance you don't come back from. I set the phone down without replying. I remembered every single moment I had spent giving to him. Not just money, but time, love, understanding. I remembered holding him through fevers, packing his lunch every day before school, scraping by to pay for his college dorm when his scholarships didn't cover housing. And I remembered the way he looked down at the floor when Vanessa told me to leave. He had already made his choice. I didn't need him to say the words. He'd said them with his silence. A few days later, I walked through a quiet bookstore downtown and picked up a journal. Leather-bound, soft, the pages thick and smooth. I didn't know what I'd write in it yet. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. But I wanted a place to hold thoughts that didn't revolve around weddings or betrayal. I wanted something for myself. The woman behind the counter complimented my earrings and gave me a quiet smile. She didn't know my name, not my story, not the headlines or the videos. And that made me feel normal. Not invisible, not used, just me. That night, I wrote one sentence in the journal before going to bed. The most dangerous thing you can do to a woman who gives everything is show her what it's like to have nothing left to lose. I closed the book and turned off the light. Julian and Vanessa had expected to move forward untouched, to frame the story around my meltdown and disappear into their new lives. But they underestimated the one thing I had that they didn't: boundaries. And once I found them, I was never going back. The week after their wedding that never was, everything went quiet. No new posts from Vanessa. Julian's number never lit up my screen again. The silence was strange at first, like the aftermath of a storm when the air still tastes like lightning. But slowly, the quiet became peace. The gossip died down. The forums moved on to the next outrageous bride. But for those who knew us personally, the memory lingered. I began to hear little things. A neighbor mentioned seeing Julian picking up groceries alone, his face drawn and pale. A friend of a friend said Vanessa had applied for a short-term loan to cover what was left of their now canceled wedding bills. The fantasy they built on my back was gone, and with it went the illusion that everything would be fine without me. They thought I was replaceable. But it turns out, it's hard to replace someone who gave you everything for free. I spent those quiet days rebuilding, not my reputation, but myself. I took walks without my phone. I repotted plants on the porch I had ignored for years. I visited the beach again and let the waves lap over my ankles. I even took a painting class, something I hadn't done since college. For once, I wasn't defined by being someone's mother or someone's checkbook. I was just Linda. The woman I had buried under everyone else's needs had finally come up for air. One evening, I sat on my couch with a cup of tea, flipping through the journal I'd started in a bookstore, page after page now filled with reflections, not rants. Strength, not sorrow. The last page simply read, "Being alone isn't the same as being abandoned. It's choosing to be somewhere you're respected." That night, I received one final letter, a real one, handwritten, the envelope soft and expensive. Inside was a single page. No apology, no acknowledgement of what had happened, just an offer. Julian and Vanessa had rescheduled a smaller ceremony. No venue, no flowers, just a backyard reception hosted by one of her friends. The letter read, "We'd like you to be there. We're starting fresh. We hope you'll support us." I didn't laugh. I didn't cry. I didn't feel anything at all. I folded the letter once and slid it into the drawer beneath my sink. The one filled with old receipts, broken batteries, and expired coupons. Forgotten things that no longer held value. I didn't need to respond. They would know soon enough. The ceremony came and went without me. I didn't check for photos. I didn't ask how it went. On the same day, I took a train to the next town over and treated myself to lunch at a restaurant I'd always admired but never splurged on. I sat near the window, sunlight pouring across my table, and smiled at nothing in particular. A few weeks later, I received a message on Facebook from someone I hadn't seen in years. Saw what happened, just wanted to say, what you did took courage. I wish my mom had done the same. And then another. You reminded me I'm allowed to say no. I didn't reply to those either. Not because I didn't care, but because I already knew. I knew what I did was right. I knew choosing dignity over family politics wasn't dramatic. It was necessary. I knew that sometimes walking away is the most powerful thing a woman can do. Months passed. The house stayed quiet, and for the first time in my life, I liked it that way. I started hosting small dinners with people who saw me, not as a bank, not as a burden, just as Linda. I picked up my camera again. I started baking again. I took back all the pieces of myself I had handed out like candy. And I realized something. They didn't break me. They freed me. By trying to humiliate me, they gave me back my voice. By pushing me out, they pushed me toward my own life. And I finally stepped into it. The last message I ever received from Julian came a few months later. A simple, I hope you're okay. I miss you. I didn't answer. Some stories don't get tied up with forgiveness. Some stories just end. And that's okay. Because I wasn't his wallet anymore. I wasn't his safety net or Vanessa's fundraiser. I was his wake-up call.